So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and give us the latest update, which I know you've updated us, but we just want to make sure that the rest of the neighborhood is aware of what's going on and see if they have any questions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bart. Guys, we truly appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for taking the opportunity to sign on. And if you're watching this later, thank you for that opportunity as well. We have with us our city manager, Scott Hildebrand's with us on the Lenoir side. We have Joel Whitford. I'm going to turn it over to him in just a second with McGill Associates. And we have Matthew Starling and Michelle Bradman with Colliers Engineering and Design with us too. And then they'll talk a little bit as well. So with that introduction, we'll kick it off to Joel.
Hey, good evening. I appreciate your time tonight. And as Jeff said, we did just want to provide a brief update to you tonight. And so this is the second community meeting that we're holding. The first meeting had a lot of project detail, talked about the need for the project, why an emergency interconnect between the towns of Valdese and the city of Lenoir is very important. Um, and Lenoir supplies water to Valdese Water, who supplies water to Waterfront Club. So it's also important to you to have that emergency interconnection. We also talked about really the details of the project. It's a 20-inch water line. The fact that it's starting in Burke County and it's ending several miles north of Waterfront Club in Caldwell County. There's a booster station, but it's well outside of your community. We talked about easements, what those are, what the need for them is, temporary construction easements that are only needed during the construction process and go away after construction's finished and everything's restored. And then also permanent utility easements, which are needed to be able to maintain the water line in the future. Sometime really there's not much need to maintain the line, but it gives the city the right to come in and maintain that line if needed. So similar to Lenoir, Valdese Water has an easement for their water line. Other utilities do as well. And the majority of that is planned to be within the road right of way, in utility easement right of way. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. We also talked about restoration during construction and after construction, what that would look like, and then the overall project timeline. So today, rather than rehash all that, we wanted to give just a quick update, talk about the route for the project and the change along Big View Lane. Talk about the lake crossing specifically, a little bit about that process, because that does have some impact on some temporary construction easements and permanent easements, particularly along Big View Lane. And then finally, kind of wrap up with what does the easement process look like? What are the next steps? What can you expect after this informational meeting? And then at the end, we can answer some questions as well. So let's talk about, let me start sharing my screen so I can show you some of the maps here. And everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Thank you. All right. So this is just the overview of the town of Valdese. So the star beside Valdese Water Plant, that's where the project begins. And then it crosses the lake, runs north through Waterfront Club, and then several miles north of that. Oops. Okay. So this was, sorry, I forgot I wasn't sharing my screen on this agenda, but this is what we want to talk through. The project route, the lake crossing, impacted properties, the easement process, and then time for questions Okay, so this is the project route. So again, starting at the water plant, crosses Lake Roadhus, into Caldwell County through the Waterfront Club. And so, can you see my mouse on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, so this side is about the end of Waterfront Club. And if you go all the way back to the right side of the screen, that is the easternmost boundary and Connolly Springs Road. So you can see out of this entire community, the water line runs essentially through the western section of it, from the southern end to the northern end, primarily along Scenic Lane, but also along Big View Lane now. And then once it gets to the top of Scenic Lane at the creek crossing, it will go into private properties through an easement and then extend north and northeast up to Carpenter Road. From there, it's outside of your community and continues north for a good ways along Carpenter Road to Baton School Road. And if you're familiar, up north of your community where Baton School Road is, there's actually a school there, elementary school. And so that's very close to where the water main will tie in with the city of Lenoir system. Okay, so that's the project route. And so zooming in here a little bit, so the big, excuse me. So the big change that has happened, everything else from Big View Lane, Scenic Lane, northernward has stayed the same. So the main change was the lake crossing, rather than extending kind of straight northeast up to this little peninsula here. It has been revised to essentially shoot straight across to the cul-de-sac at Big View Lane and essentially follow just inside the property line of lot 216. Okay, so why has this changed? So part of the design process is really a good review of the design parameters, for the whole project, but in particular for this lake crossing. So horizontal directional drill lake crossings happen all the time with many different types of utilities, water mains, gas lines, fiber optic, all kinds of utilities under roadways, railroads, also under streams. But not every day do they happen under lakes. So this is kind of a big deal, especially when we get into very large pipe. So during the design process, we worked with several specialty HDD contractors, and some of the key things we found were that the pipe installation, so the entry point where it goes into the ground and comes out of the ground, needs to be quite a ways away from the water's edge. And that definitely makes sense. So it needs to be 100 feet or more away, probably 150 feet in this case. And more importantly, is that the pipe depth really needs to be about 40 feet deep or deeper once it enters underneath the water. So we do expect rock underneath the lake, underneath these properties, especially at the depth that we're going to be drilling. And so you don't want to drill at a very shallow level, because once you drill underneath, that you can create, if you create a fracture, the fluid can come out, into the lake. So you want to be really 30, 40 feet deep once you cross under the water. And so, crossing under the lake at this point to Big View Lane, it's down at the bottom of the lake at the edge right here. We're probably going to be 100 feet, 80 to 100 feet deep. And then even as we get up to the cul-de-sac, we're going to be about 40 feet deep until it crosses under the cul-de-sac and then exits into lot 220 right here as proposed.
Hey, Joel, that
Yes.
just for clarification, right there at the water's edge, we're going to be 80 to 100 feet deep below the bottom of the lake, not the surface of the lake.
We're going to be
Right.
right there where the water meets the edge, probably about 80 feet deep under that surface. Yes. So, yeah, not in the water, but underneath the ground surface. So this is going, it gives us in the city a lot of advantages having a straight shot. It allows, originally it wasn't expected that it could be installed at such a steep angle going down and then coming back out. But working closely with contractors, we were able to work through those scenarios. And then also being able to extend up and underneath the cul-de-sac means really no impact to any properties that are on the waterfront. and gets the pipe underneath a lot of utilities that are also in that cul-de-sac. And so this really gets us to the closest point, which we can then turn and get into the HOA right of way. So those are the reasons for the change. I think it's really going to be a benefit for most everybody. And so what I wanted to talk about next, which is really related, is this HDD process. So again, horizontal directionally drilling, that process, that's how the pipe will be installed underneath the lake. So originally, we had planned on the drill rig being set up within Waterfront Club and being drilled from north to south back to the water plant. And so through this design process and the elevations at which we're working with, we've now determined that the drill rig can be set on the water plant property and then drilled north to Waterfront Club. So as we talked about before, most of the process, the several month long process, 3-4 months of drilling, just depending on the type of rock that's encountered, that'll be happening from the waterfront. I'm sorry, from the south side of the lake, and then moving northward. And so all that's underground. There'll be no impact really until the drill head surfaces into waterfront. And so that would be on the other side of the cul-de-sac, the north side of that. And so what happens at that point? So once they've completed that drill, all during that time, they're removing the rock and being able to, make this large bore hole underneath the lake. At that point, they would start the process of fusing pipe within waterfront. And so this is about 2,000, let's say roughly 2,000 feet of pipe that has to be pulled back underneath the lake. So so around a week or two total time period, they would fuse the pipe together within waterfront. So they would do that along Big View Lane and turn it up Scenic Lane. But the bend, so one of the important things though is the bend radius is such that you can't turn these tight corners with that pipe. So there will be a very short time period over a few days as they are fusing this pipe and then having to string that completely together, that they would pull that through a couple of properties. So they would cut this corner here and they would cut this corner here. And when I say cut, that doesn't mean cut trees. So what they would do is take a cable and pull that fused pipe through those properties. And so it would be strung out over the course of a few days, maybe a week, so that they can have that prepared and laid out to pull back underneath the lake. So, all right, so the next question is, so what happens here at Big View Lane? So they'll fuse the pipe on the north side, they'll fuse it on the south side of Big View Lane. And then there will come a time, like right at the point when they're ready to pull that pipe back under the lake, they will have to fuse the pipe together across Big View Lane so that it's one continuous segment. And so as soon as they do that, it'll take, what they expect is about a day to pull that pipe back under the lake, because the hole's already created under the lake, and they just attach that reaming head to the front of the pipe and pull it back under. And so that's, again, a very short time period. If there was any kind of emergency that happened during that period, they would have some equipment there on hand to either cut the pipe or lift the pipe, so that access could happen to the end of Big View Lane. Let's see. So that pretty much explains the lake crossing process. And again, the benefit is that the time period of that process within Waterfront is going to be very short as compared to originally planned. So there still will be open cut installation of pipe within Waterfront Club. So along this orange route, they will install pipe by cutting the trench open, crossing Scenic Lane, and then heading north. So let's move towards impacted properties within Waterfront Club. So, and this will help explain, the easement process and what's going to happen as far as permanent easements and temporary easements. So I explained that the fused pipe would have to cut this corner here, and then it would have to cut this corner here. So there is a proposed temporary construction easement across these couple of properties. Again, that looks like a very large chunk, right? But it's going to go away as soon as that construction work is finished. And it's not going to be needed for the whole project. It's simply going to be needed when the contractor goes in to fuse the pipe, run it through those corners, and then pull the pipe back through the lake. So once that's done, the temporary construction easements is really no longer needed. So permanent easements. So there are several properties that will require more easement than others. So in particular, this strip of land along 216, that's a proposed 20-foot easement. It is right on the edge of the property to minimize any impact to the owner. The one on 220 is right at the front of the property, and so it would cross the face of that property to the other property line and then run up to the road. So there's, it would impact a driveway there, but it would just cross that perpendicularly. And then once we get up into Big View Lane and then also Scenic Lane, again, primarily we're trying to stay within the HOA right of way. So we have found that there are fiber and electric lines that run through there, which we did expect. But, after more investigation, and as you see out there, there's transformers set. Some of those are right inside that. So in order to have enough room to install the pipe, again, in most cases within that HOA right of way, but in some cases we'll have to probably bump out and go around those onto the properties. So there will be a proposed standard 10-foot permanent utility easement. So, for example, in this area, that'd be a 10-foot easement. And then there would be temporary easement outside of that. There are some properties as we go northward which will have a little bit more permanent utility easement where we do expect to go around transformers, like lots 243 to 245, for example. Moving northward, again, it's pretty much a standard 10-foot permanent utility easement, except where we're having to jump out and go onto the property. So I guess it is important to note that that front area of your property, outside of the HOA right of way, still has a setback. So, you can't build, a structure within that easement area anyway. So, really do believe like that we're trying to do the best thing for the community and minimize those impacts to your properties. This area right here at Westward Drive, there is essentially a very steep drop off down to a low point. So in this area, the water line would be installed through the right lane of the roadway. That would be a temporary installation. There would be, traffic would be allowed in one lane during that process. Once that work is finished, the roadway would be, the trench would obviously be backfilled and restored with pavement, but this, section of roadway would also be milled and then overlaid, so it looks, just like the original pavement, once that's finished. So that's a temporary, inconvenience during construction. And then, again, continuing to extend northernly, the easement is still pretty much the same as we talked about. There's a few areas where it gets wider, and then once it gets up to the crossing of Stratford Creek, well, similar to this other intersection back there, the water line would go into the traffic lane, just the edge of the traffic lane, and be installed by open cut over top of the large culvert that's there. There's a lot of room over top of that culvert, so that should be done again with minimal impact. And then the pavement restoration would be very similar to what I described previously down at the intersection with Westward Way. So that would travel across that culvert up to this curve, and then at this point, the water line would cross the road and then head north through private properties. So that would end the impact essentially to waterfront at that point. All right, so yeah, at this point, I did just want to introduce again Matt and Michelle, and they can talk briefly about what the right-of-way process is going to look like. Essentially, the key points are that this is not the only time you're going to hear about. This is just a brief update. They will reach out to discuss the right-of-way process with each impacted property owner. And then, as they'll probably mention, the next step is an introductory letter that will include their contact information and next steps. Matt or Michelle, would you like to just provide just a little brief overview?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, kind of took my thunder. You went over everything already. So, but well, thank you for everyone's time this evening. Definitely appreciate you jumping on this call and giving us this opportunity. As Jeff and Joel mentioned, Collier's Engineering Design was brought on by the city to handle the right-of-way acquisition for the project. So my position is the lead for the right-of-way acquisition. And then I also have Michelle Bramham on the line as well, and she will be the lead agent. So Michelle will be the one that is going to reach out to each and every property owner that's impacted by the project. So every property that you saw that had either a TCE or PUE easement on there, we will be reaching out to independently. As Joel mentioned, our next step will be to be sending out an introduction letter with all of our contact information. So we are currently in the process of drafting those letters. So I would suspect they'll probably be mailed next week. So within the next 2 weeks, anybody that has an easement on their property will receive a letter. It will introduce us. It will provide Michelle's contact information, her phone number, her cell phone, her email. And at that point, what we're going to want to do is meet with you each individually. While we're showing the exhibit here, we also have detailed plans that we can, drill in even closer into your property. So we'll have those plan sheets available. We'll discuss specifics of your property. And then, that will be that initial meeting. We'll also then move into the valuation stage where we'll look to value these easements. And, after that's completed, we will be making you a written offer on behalf of the city for the easements that we're looking to purchase. And then once we come to some settlement and agreement, we'll be looking for you to, sign off on these easements. And, at that point, Michelle is a notary, so we can go ahead and take care of, the notaries at your home or at your place of business, or wherever is convenient for you. And then at that point, we'll be turning those easements over to the city and recording with the county, and then looking to pay you for those easements. So that's a quick process that, it's going to take us months to do, but just wanted to introduce ourselves and kind of put Michelle's contact information out there for you. I mean, by all means, you do not need to wait for the letter. You can feel free to reach out to her. Even if you're not sure if you're impacted, you can feel free to reach out and we can confirm or, let you know. But definitely look forward to working with everybody and, happy to help in any way we can. I don't know if Michelle, do you have anything, or did I steal your thunder too?
You completely stole the thunder, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad to see several of the landowners that I've already spoken with. They were very, interested in attending tonight. Very glad to see you put some faces with some names as well. And please reach out to me with any questions or concerns or anything like that. And Matt did give us a real quick and dirty down on everything and the process and how it goes. But it takes us a couple of months to do that. So please be patient with us, but I'm more than happy to meet with you on your property, go over everything, zoom in everything we need to do to make you feel comfortable and fully understand what's needed on the project.
And Jeff and Joel are great to work with. I mean, anything that we can't answer, we'll certainly be reaching out to them, and they'll be working. We'll all be working as a team.
Thank you, Matt and Michelle.
Thank you.
Jeff, any closing statements before we open it up for questions?
No, excuse me. No, again, thank you for everyone being here tonight and taking your time tonight to come to this meeting. And I appreciate Joel and Matt and Michelle. But yeah, any kind of questions that you have, we'll be glad to answer those now.
Hey there, it's Mary Vron. I do have some questions about the timeline in terms of phases of this getting done. So if you could give us an idea how long you think it's going to be from when you start at the water plant, go under the lake, and when you get into the Waterfront Club, and then from there over to Scenic Lane, and then Scenic Lane and out. Do you have some idea, barring something unforeseen happening, which always happens on a project?
You're exactly right. I'm glad I'm glad you understand that.
I was a project manager. I get it.
Yes. So this project is expected to be one single contract. So the prime contractor will be the water main contractor who does the open cut installation. But they will also hire the HDD specialty contractor that we talked about earlier. So those could be done concurrently. They could be done at different times. But the HDD process, we expect, once it's under contract and they go through the shop drawing submittal phase, some of it may depend on that contractor's schedule, but we expect it could take, after they mobilize, maybe 3 months to drill underneath, and then the work within Waterfront on the HDD process. Again, a couple of weeks is what we're hoping. What they really expect, because the brunt of the work is the drilling process, and that's going to happen from the south side. So let's say they were to start a couple of months after the contract time starts, then if they started 2 months after, they would probably be done about 6 months into the project. So that's just an example of what we might expect. The water main installation, we could certainly tell the contractor that they need to install from the south to the north to try to have those two timelines overlap a little bit better. And so, that open cut installation, it's got a few challenges. As you saw, it's got to go through the road, go through a culvert. They'll have to contend with utilities. But let's see, we'll probably expect that could be 4 months, 6 months or so. That seems like a long time, but I don't want to, say too short of a time period, because they will encounter some challenges. The overall project, because it also includes a booster station, which has very large pumps. It has electrical gear. It has an electrical three-phase electrical service. All of those are very long lead times. So the overall contract will be pretty long, probably 15 to 18 months. But that work, doing the pump station, will be done later in the project. So we expect the first half of the project to really, focus in the south end of the project.
So if I'm hearing you right, Jill, you're saying that things will be happening concurrently, that it's not a linear process, that it's going under the lake, but there could at the same time be something happening within the Waterfront Club. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, they'll have to do the open cut installation, along the roadway, outside of the road, at some point during the process. And it's not dependent upon that lake crossing at all. Those are two different contractors.
Okay.
But
right.
yes.
Yeah. And then as far as the work hours and days, I'm assuming that this is going to be something that'll be put into writing so we know what to expect. Are you thinking that you're going to have them mirror what we currently have in the HOA for all contractors and work that's getting done? I don't know if you're privy to that, but just
No, what is that, Mary? What do you
Yeah.
currently have? That'd be good
it's
to know.
Monday. It's Monday through Saturday. There was an amendment to that, Bart, you can correct me, but I believe it's 8 to 6. There's certain holidays that are not allowed. But I'm sure that Bart could give that to you.
Yes, no, I can share that. I thought that maybe I had, maybe I hadn't, but when I get back into the office, I can.
We've seen several amendments, so we may indeed have a copy of that. But I just didn't point that out. But yes, we can mimic that for sure. Typically, we require Monday through Friday. We don't allow Saturday unless it's a special request. So you would expect most of that work's going to be Monday through Friday. We have on projects let them start about 7 a.m. But if the HOA prefers 8 a.m., we can certainly put that in the contract.
And then who would actually be our point person if we have any questions, concerns, there's problems? I don't know. Is this something that your easement acquisition folks handle at Colliers, or is there someone in the trenches that we talk to? Who would that be?
During construction?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. So once we get through the right-of-way process, Colliers will have done the majority of their work. So they'll still be connected to us and the city. But at that point, McGill also has a construction administration team. So we have a design team, design and permitting, that's working hard on it right now. But that'll transition to the construction administration and observation team. So we'll have a on-site field rep who will be out there to witness construction, not full time, but a lot of the time. And so that person, once we get closer to construction, we'll identify who that person is. And certainly we'll give you that contact name. We can also give you the contact name of the construction administrator. So what they do is we don't manage the contractor, right? We're not like telling them, do this or do that, but we administer the documents, so the contract requirements. And so we'll run, we'll have progress meetings, we'll do pay applications, daily communication with the contractor. And so we'll have several people that are intimately involved during construction. And yes, the HOA, can have that contact information.
And I'd
Yes,
like
Joel,
to add too. Okay.
No, I was just going to say that was part of what we wanted to put in writing. I think it'll be for everyone's benefit, like this meeting. Go ahead and lay it out up front. Appoint person, just so everybody knows who the questions go to. Certain updates, just to keep everybody informed of what's going on. But I think it'd be best for everyone if that's part of the easement in writing before everything gets started.
And to add to that, I mean, I would say at this point, right now, we would say that Michelle will be your point person for pretty much anything and everything. So you can come to Michelle if you have questions about design, the process, everything. And then even once we're basically done, once we've reached an agreement, your easement's been recorded, construction started, if something comes up that is different than what we've told you, or something's happening that you're unsure about, by all means, we're not falling off the face of the earth. You can definitely reach out to Michelle. She'll look into it. She might not have the answers, like I said, but she'll connect the dots. She'll get you in touch with McGill's, construction manager, or with Joel or Jeff. We'll facilitate it if there's a concern or issue. So definitely, no matter what stage you are in the project, we'll still help. So you can always reach out to us. But I would say at this point, where we are in the project right now, the main point would be Michelle, and then as we move on to the actual construction stage, then I think Joel will have a different point person that's on the ground during construction.
Yeah, because I was thinking, like, from a liability perspective, if something happens to somebody, they trip over machinery or they fall in a trench or what have you, I'm curious on where things stand with insurance. Is this going to be something that's going to be on the contractor's policy?
Yes.
It's not going to come onto our HOA policy, which would potentially raise our premiums. Is it all running through there?
That's right. Yeah, the contractor will have full insurance on the project. Good question.
So if something happens, like the UPS guy gets hit by one of the trucks or what have you, if we got sued, are we covered for legal defense in a situation like that? Like if they come after the HOA, even if it wasn't our fault, is that going to be covered by that as well?
Well, so I'm not an attorney, so let me just preface it by that. If you do have some specific questions like that about the HOA, I think probably the best thing to do would be to send those in writing, and then we can send that to the city's attorney for them to take a look at.
General question for you. Is there a definitive start and stop date in the easement, and will it be specified in the easement?
So two things: that the permanent easement will be perpetuity. So it'll be the right for the city to come back and maintain that. That doesn't mean they can just come in and destroy everything, right? If they were to have to come back, they would dig down to the line to do whatever they need, which again we don't expect. But
I meant the temporary easement.
Oh, temporary easement. Good question. Yeah, I was gonna get to that next. So what we're expecting is from like the construction start date, the notice to proceed date for construction, we would set that at a period of 2 years. Because again, I mentioned that, the contract time will probably be maybe up to 18 months, but we want to give time after that because we may end the project, depending on when it starts, it may end in December, right? They need to come back in the spring to do some reseeding and try to sow the grass again. Because they're not going to just put it down once and and just let it go and nothing come up. We're going to make sure that they come back and restore it properly. So we want to have extra time in there for that temporary easement.
So
Okay,
with that,
basically, I just want to make sure that there would be a window that we wouldn't both be trying building on the same property.
Yeah, good point. And also, I mean, the linear construction, even though that seems like and is a long time period, what happens in front of your specific property is going to be very short term, from, you know, a week or less, you would expect in most cases.
Understood.
so in regards to the restoration, Joel, we've heard you say that, it's going to be same or better, but how specific will you be with how that restoration unfolds? For example, if trees need to come down, we really value our trees here in the Waterfront Club. If you need to take down a 10-foot tree or bigger, I mean, you're not going to come back with a 6-inch seedling, are you? Because that wouldn't be same or better.
No, and that's something that Michelle will talk to you about during the right-of-way process. If it's something like that, it may be a special case that Colliers needs to work with you on in advance for the specific property owner. But
That's
good
also
question.
in our common areas though as well, correct? I mean, both areas, common and private, are being impacted with that.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, from what I can tell, it's going to be in the open areas that are, that don't have the trees. So most of the areas have a pretty wide shoulder, even outside of the HOA right of way. So we do expect most of it's not going to be an impact, which is good because we get up on the Carpenter Road and there are certainly places where there's some massive trees that are, close to the road that we're going to impact. But within waterfront, there is that nice, green setback in most cases.
And we're going to be representing the common open space and negotiating in writing. We want to put everything in writing, especially how it's left. So that's back on us to make sure that all that is properly negotiated and documented.
Now we'll be meeting with each individual landowner and going over the exact impacts because I know some landowners, it would help them if some trees were potentially removed, some it may not. But it just depends on each individual location and each individual landowner itself. So it's not looking at the project as a whole, it's each individual property.
If you don't mind, I seem to have the most questions here, but I'm assuming, with the warranty, there's going to be a warranty, correct, when you're done with the work? Can you tell me how long that
Yes.
period of time would be?
Yes, that's a 1-year warranty period.
Oh. So then if you needed to come back after that, I mean, would that be a new negotiation? Or are you writing these easements where that's not the case?
Oh, so I thought you were talking about the contractor. The contractor will have a 1-year warranty period to come back, and if there's anything wrong with the project, to come back in and repair.
Okay. Is that gonna cover like if the trench, like there's resettlement or cracks in the pavement or what have you? Is that
Yes.
gonna be listed
Yes, that's
within,
right.
is it could be the detail within that as well?
Within the contract, oh yes. Yeah, in our contract book, yeah, it includes all surfaces. Yep. So the asphalt pavement where they're putting it underneath, they're they have to cross in a few locations. They have to install underneath the roadway in a few places. Yeah, all of that's included.
Great questions. Anybody
All
else
right.
have any?
And our contract book is about that thick. There's a lot in it that the contractor has to follow.
So, Matthew, are these easements something that could be assigned in the future?
No, I mean the TCEs or temporary construction easements will expire once the construction is complete.
Right,
So
but
you're
the permanent
talking
ones are what
you're
I'm,
talking about
yeah,
the
but
permanent utility easements.
Mhm.
You're talking about. I mean, at this point, they'll be in the city's name. I don't see that the city would be assigning them to anybody else. I guess is the point. Are you asking, will they want to do anything else with the easement within the easement?
Well, what I'm thinking about is that the easement's going to be an agreement between the homeowner and the city
Yep.
or the HOA in the city.
Yep.
If for whatever reason the city decided to assign them to somebody else to handle, do all those original terms transfer as well with that? Is there going to be any mention that these could be transferable within the agreement? Are you going to address it directly, or is it going to be within that, out of curiosity?
And Jeff, we could talk. We could ask that question to the city's attorney and see if there's any specific language. I mean, they're still drafting up our templates, so the city attorney is going to draft up the templates for us to utilize, and then we'll essentially be just adjusting the owner's name, the parcel number, the settlement amount, things like that. So specific language like that we'd address with the attorney. I mean, I can honestly say, over 20 years of doing right away, I mean, typically once an easement goes to the city, it's going to stay with the city. But Jeff, if you can speak, let me know if there's something different on your thoughts.
No, I don't foresee the city sending the water line to anybody. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't see that happening.
But certainly here's my thought, Mary, I mean, or whoever, is once we provide you with the offer, we'll also give you that easement template to review, you to look at it, have your attorney look at it. And if you have any questions about the specific language within the easement, we certainly can take those questions to the city's attorney. And again, it doesn't mean they're going to agree to changes, but at the same time, let's have a conversation about it. And if there's something that's reasonable you're asking for, we can certainly potentially make some changes to the easement, but typically, they'll want to have standard language across the project. But we'll certainly take those questions to the city.
Okay. Who should we be directing legal questions like that to again? Where did you want us to send that in?
So,
because you don't want us contacting your attorney, the city attorney directly. I'm assuming so.
No, go through Michelle.
Yeah.
Michelle?
So
Yeah.
So
Okay.
as far as the list of questions, concerns, issues, I mean, send them to Michelle, and we'll then kind of funnel it through to either Jeff or Joel or the city's attorney, and we'll come back with responses. So we'll kind of be that middleman to help the process. So you're not trying to find who you need to talk to. We'll make your life easier. At least that's our goal.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you want to, what you can do is, specific questions, things like that, put them in an email. That way you have them all together and we could answer them all at one time. And that way you have a culmination of everything.
We'll try. Okay.
This is Dan Huchelak, owner of 220. Couple of quick questions.
Yeah, go for it.
First off, can I get a better gauge in regards to timeline and time frame on construction? I heard a couple different dates being mentioned. I know it's more specific to our lot, but overall it sounded like it's a 15-month project, roughly.
Yes, that's right. And that's after notice to proceed. So we're in the right-of-way acquisition process with easements. We're submitting for permits shortly. So we still have, permit approval process through the state, through several agencies. So before it goes to, we have to go through all that before we go to construction. So, specific dates, we don't have those nailed down yet.
Do you have a rough guess on anticipated start date?
I would suppose early 2027, because typically, I mean, it's not always the case, but typically we want to have all the permits and easements in hand before we go through the bidding process. So this is it's a municipality and it's also a funded project. So this is a public bid process. So there's a lot of requirements associated with that. It'll probably, with contractors being very busy, it'll be more than the required 30-day bid period. So it could be a month and a half. There'll be a process on the tail end of that as far as reviewing those documents, sending to the funding agency, and then awarding the contract. So the city will have to award the contract to the contractor. Then there'll be a pre-construction meeting. So that's several months right there. So that's kind of what we expect. But there's not, a set date that we have to begin by, like a funding requirement. But
That's what,
as we move through the process, certainly we'll communicate all that with Michelle, and she can keep you apprised of that.
Where are the funds coming for this project?
Actually, at least three sources. So one is a state appropriation from the state of North Carolina because of the importance of this project as an emergency water interconnect. Secondly, the city has gotten a state reserve loan. It's not a federal loan, it's a state reserve loan that's administered by North Carolina Division of Environmental Quality, and they have a division called Division of Water Infrastructure who administers those funds. That's a loan that the city has to pay back, and then the remainder part the city would pay for with local funds.
So sounds like the project is fully funded.
Yes.
Are there any stipulations on those funds? Do they expire?
So I don't expect so. That they do have milestones for us to meet as far as like design and permitting, getting under construction. But it's not like the ARPA funds, which have to be done and spent by a certain time frame. The city does not have like a moratorium where they have to complete this project by so people can develop. That's not really the purpose of the project. It's to create this emergency water interconnect between the two entities.
Are there any incentives being offered to the contractors for an expedited finish?
No, generally those aren't allowed for these type of funds.
Specific.
Obviously, the city can make a shorter time period or they can make a longer time period. Making a shorter time period generally increases costs potentially exponentially because of a compressed schedule, and contractor has to bring, much more larger number of crews out there, and things can get pretty hectic. So generally that's not ideal for anybody involved, including the property owners. So we don't plan to do that. But at the same time, there will be a contract time so that they don't just drag their feet.
And that was my second question. Do we have a contract? Is there an expiration on anything or a set deadline?
So that's in the contract documents. So when we go through the bid process, the bidders who are general contractors, licensed to do work in the state of North Carolina, we'll know what that time frame is. So when they submit a bid, they'll be signing up for that time frame.
Okay. Couple questions specific to lot 220.
Yes.
Do you know roughly how long you anticipate construction on that property?
Let's see real quick.
I bring it up because we anticipate breaking ground soon, and our goal was to build. I don't know if this is going to put kind of a halt on those plans.
Rather than just throwing that out there, let me talk with the city and Colliers and let us get back to you individually on that. Because that's a great question, very important.
Okay. I noticed on drawing, I think it's the 103 that was provided. I got this from Michelle the other day. There's a set of valves. And I'm aesthetically, I don't know how big those valves are. I don't know how much of an eyesore that's going to be. Is that all going to be underground? Will there be anything that? Okay.
Yeah. And primarily we're trying for the route. There'll be some areas where it does get shallower, but for the most part, typical water lines are usually about 3 feet of ground cover over top of them. This line's going to have 4 to 5 feet of cover over top of the pipe. So for protection, right, against digging. And so, all the pipes can be underground, as you know, but these valves are also underground. They do have, so they come up above the pipe like this, and then there's a stem that extends up to the ground level, and that's within what's called a valve cover. So it's just like a small piece of pipe extends up to the ground, and then there's a valve cover that's usually about 6 inches or so in diameter. And so that's really that little cast iron valve cover is all that you would see. And it doesn't stick up above ground. It's usually pretty flush with the ground. Sometimes it's beneficial to pour a little concrete donut around that to protect it. So it depends on where it's placed. But there is some flexibility in where that gate valve can be placed. It doesn't have to be right where it was shown on the plans.
Okay. I noticed a 90-degree. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say that's where we can meet with you, with Michelle and Joel, and look at where you're planning to build, where your drive is anticipated, and if there is some conflict or something that we can avoid. I mean, we're still in that stage that Joel may be able to make some adjustments to on your specific lot, because just depending on where you're looking to put your drive.
Sure. One adjustment I suggested that came on the top of my head was possibly twisting the drill before it enters, just maybe 1 degree, so it doesn't have to land exactly where it lands. It'd be great if they could shoot, right to the easement, the existing easement, rather than, for some reason, it has to come up right smack dab in kind of the center of that lot. And I fear that we're going to be losing quite a few trees there. And aesthetically, I'm not sure how nice that's going to look when it's all said and done. Back to Mary's restore comments. I'd love to see what kind of restore plans are proposed.
Yeah, and yours is certainly a special property as 220. So those can be some specific conversations with you about that.
Yep. And we'll work through that, and through the negotiation process as well. So yeah, that's definitely something we can talk through. And it might be a situation where either, maybe the contractor does something, or, we pay you to do something. So, maybe we can work out something there, depending on, what we determine the impacts to be.
And I would say though, as far as like the direction, the angle, that's pretty much set because it's such a long straight shot. Now they can, sometimes they can turn it some, so there may be a possibility that as they get into that easement on 216, they can kind of turn it slightly. But I don't expect much because it is such a long straight shot. And the drilling process is going down at such a steep angle. That's where they're going to be doing all their steering with the equipment and then coming back out. So, we're trying to follow this lot line along 216, so not to just go right through the middle of it.
Do you know where the drill is going to be set up? Will it be set up in 220 or across the river?
The drilling equipment will be on the south side of the river. So it'll, once it exits into lot 220, that's when there'll be the, temporary process of having some equipment in that area to receive that, to make to connect the pipe over to it, to attach it back to the drill and send it back underneath. So that's the very, for the whole process, that's the minimal part that's required. So the major drilling rig and where they capture the drilling fluid and they capture all of the rock cuttings and stuff that comes out of the hole, that's on the south side of the lake. Very good question.
I noticed 290-degree bends. Will all the pipe that runs underneath 220 and along the easement be underground?
Yes.
Or does it stub up at any point? Are there any junction boxes anywhere?
There will not be any junction boxes. What they'll do is, those are two different types of pipe, but they will do all of that connection underneath the ground. So they'll have to connect the fused pipe that's drilled under the lake with the ductile iron restrained joint pipe that will be installed throughout Waterfront at that point. And then those 245-degree bends, those will be deep within the ground as well, and restrained joints so that it's locked in place. I think from the map that you had originally seen too, we have, pushed that line a little bit further across to the opposite property line. But we, the one you saw originally versus what I show now, we have a little bit of flexibility on that opposite property line. But the point that it crosses the cul-de-sac is pretty close to being set.
Will there be any trenching involved on 220?
Yes.
Or so it's literally gonna tear up that front area.
I expect so, yes.
Okay, and then what limitations do I have in regards to driveway? I understand I can pass over it. I can't do any structures out front.
Not within that the permanent utility easement.
What about
the
his
driveways-
septic? Would his septic not be able to be anywhere in that area? He's got he only has so much room to work with there.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No septic either?
Not in the utility easement. But these, these are all very good questions. And so what I would say is, anything like that you're concerned about, or if you have some ideas of what your house plans look like, get with Michelle, and she can meet you out there, and then we can have some conversations about that, your specific plans there.
Sure. The last one I had was safety for the kids. I'm going to assume that any large holes will be covered daily. Can we make sure that's in the contract?
Yes. Yes, good question.
And Mr. Huchelak, if you would like, I can contact you tomorrow. And if you have your house plans or anything like that, we can go over those and, we can start that conversation actually, for your specific lot if you would like.
Sure. That works for me, Michelle.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we do appreciate your questions. Very good.
Yeah,
Will
thank
we
you.
also get a transcript of this like you did before? We had the YouTube video and the transcript and such. Will you be providing that to us? Because we had a number of people, obviously, that didn't make it on the call.
I didn't set
Yeah,
up this meeting.
I have it recorded. I'm gonna send out a link to it.
Thank you, Scott.
Perfect.
All right. Well, guys, thank you again for your time tonight. Are there any final questions before we sign off? And after we sign off, if you have questions, either reach out to Michelle, reach out to Joel, reach out to me, and we'll provide you an answer. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thanks,
everyone.
Jeff. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.